Hello, everyone. The ongoing saga of Harry and Meghan continues to evolve in ways more dramatic than anyone could have anticipated. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex, who famously announced they were stepping back from royal life to seek privacy, have instead become icons of overexposure. From Netflix specials and underwhelming podcast ventures to lawsuits and public complaints, it seems like every move they make is a deliberate attempt to stay in the spotlight. Let's start with Harry. For someone who has been so vocal about his frustrations with royal life, he appears unable, or perhaps unwilling, to fully leave it behind. While criticizing the monarchy, he still clings to his royal titles and even takes legal action against the British government over security arrangements he willingly relinquished. His actions paint a picture of entitlement masked as victimhood, seeking the privileges of royalty without embracing the accompanying duties, craving admiration without accepting accountability. Now, with rumors swirling about a potential return to the UK, without Meghan, of course, the cracks in their carefully constructed narrative are becoming impossible to ignore. Harry reportedly purchasing a property in the UK so he can come and go as he pleases adds yet another layer of contradiction. If royal life felt like such a prison to him, why does he keep circling back into its orbit? Then there's Meghan, the self-proclaimed advocate for change, who has made it crystal clear that her time in Britain is firmly in the past. While Harry grapples with an identity crisis, Meghan seems perfectly at ease living the California dream. From her sprawling multi-million-dollar mansion to mingling with A-list neighbors, she appears focused on building her personal brand. One glossy photo shoot and vague philanthropic statement at a time. Her refusal to join Harry on trips to the UK speaks volumes about their supposed united front. But let's not lose sight of the bigger picture here. This latest chapter isn't just about Harry missing his old connections or Meghan avoiding Britain altogether. It's part of their ongoing self-created PR fiasco, a relentless attempt to stay in the public eye while the world grows increasingly weary of their grievances. For a couple who once championed privacy, their actions tell a very different story. For a couple who once claimed to value privacy above all else, Harry and Meghan have done everything possible to remain in the spotlight. Their Montecito mansion, complete with 16 bathrooms and sprawling gardens, seems less like a sanctuary and more like a stage for their ongoing public performance. While neighbors might catch glimpses of Harry on nursery runs or walking the dogs, the reality behind the scenes is a brand struggling under the weight of its own contradictions. Harry's supposed love for his new Californian lifestyle is a prime example. He's embraced wellness culture with the enthusiasm of someone searching for purpose. Meditation sessions, personal trainers, and the like. Yet reports of his growing isolation and frustration suggest that the American dream isn't living up to expectations. The once cheerful prince now comes across as a man lost, described as an angry boy, adrift in a sea of poor choices and broken relationships. As for Meghan, her absence from Harry's rumored UK plans speaks volumes. For all her talk of unity and family, her priorities clearly lie elsewhere. Whether it's chasing Hollywood ambitions or further distancing herself from her husband's connections to the monarchy, Meghan's focus seems far removed from the huge life Harry appears to be wrestling with. Meghan's priorities are as clear as her PR strategies, and the irony here is almost impossible to ignore. Harry and Meghan left the UK claiming to escape the toxic pressures of royal life, only to manufacture their own brand of chaos in the US. Every move they make, from legal battles to multi-million-dollar deals, screams of a couple clinging to relevance, despite their insistence on wanting privacy. What's particularly frustrating is their ongoing effort to rewrite the narrative. Harry's recent claim that his Californian life is what his mother, Princess Diana, would have wanted for him feels as bold as it is baseless. Diana, for all her personal struggles, was unwavering in her dedication to her royal duties and her role within the monarchy. Using her legacy to justify his choices comes across as not only misleading, but also deeply disrespectful. Meanwhile, Meghan's polished public appearances and vague promises about making a difference do little to shake the growing perception of her as a calculated opportunist. Her reluctance to engage in anything beyond surface-level advocacy only reinforces the view that her priorities are more about image than substance. Meghan's reluctance to return to the UK seems less about personal growth and more about avoiding accountability for the upheaval she's contributed to. Meanwhile, Harry's rumored plans to purchase property in the UK reveal a glaring contradiction to his claims of loving his life in the US. If he's truly as content as he says, why the need for a foothold in the country he was so eager to leave? The answer, of course, lies in his inability to completely sever ties with the royal family. Despite his criticisms, Harry remains deeply connected to the institution he claims to resent, unable to let go of the privilege and status it provides. Even his upcoming court appearances in Britain carry a heavy dose of irony. Here is a man suing the government for security he voluntarily gave up, all while demanding to be treated as an ordinary citizen. His actions not only weaken his own arguments, but also emphasize his struggle to navigate life without the support of the monarchy. It's hard to muster sympathy for someone who has been handed countless opportunities only to squander them through poor decisions and a refusal to take responsibility. Harry and Meghan's story is not one of triumph over adversity, but a cautionary tale about the pitfalls of hubris and self-absorption. Their future may be uncertain, but one thing is undeniable. Their relentless quest for relevance has come at a steep price. From alienating their family to tarnishing their reputations and draining the public's goodwill, Harry and Meghan have become the architects of their own downfall. As they navigate their self-imposed exile, one can't help but wonder if they'll ever achieve the peace they so often claim to seek. Their ongoing saga is a masterclass in contradiction, audacity, and unearned self-importance. Every move they make seems designed to grab attention, yet the narrative they push feels as hollow as their claims to authenticity. While they attempt to position themselves as champions of change, their actions reveal a lack of foresight and an unfortunate tendency to alienate allies. The more they double down on their roles as victims, the clearer it becomes how much of their situation is self-inflicted. Their story seems less about overcoming adversity and more about fueling their own drama. Take Harry's ventures into the public sphere. His high-profile interviews and questionable lawsuits portray a man desperate to stay relevant. While he claims to focus on charitable work, this is often overshadowed by his persistent need to air grievances and settle scores. It raises an important question. At what point does advocacy turn into narcissism? The irony is striking. Harry's life in California is marketed as a blissful escape from his time in the UK. Yet his frequent trips back for legal battles and brief reunions with old friends tell a different story. His reluctance to fully embrace his new life highlights his inability to let go of the past. Despite his claims of contentment, reports that he's considering buying property in the UK completely undermine the narrative he's trying to sell. Then there's Meghan. Her absence from these UK-related discussions speaks volumes. Her carefully managed public image and calculated silence suggest her priorities lie elsewhere, far removed from the complexities Harry continues to grapple with. Meghan's carefully crafted image as a humanitarian and feminist icon starkly contrasts with her noticeable silence on issues that genuinely matter. While Harry awkwardly navigates his public appearances, Meghan's strategy seems to lean heavily on calculated detachment. Her decision to avoid the UK altogether may appear tactical, but it also highlights a reluctance to confront the consequences of her actions. Their sprawling Montecito mansion, a symbol of the freedom they claim to cherish, now serves as a backdrop to their unraveling. The idyllic image of their Californian life, with meditation sessions, private schools, and celebrity neighbors, fails to hide the growing strain. Reports of Harry's isolation and Meghan's strategic withdrawal suggest their American dream may not be living up to expectations. Their public persona only adds to the confusion. For a couple who champion openness and vulnerability, their actions often lack transparency. Harry's frequent references to his mother's legacy feel less like heartfelt tributes and more like a convenient shield against criticism. Diana's memory deserves better than to be reduced to a tool in their ongoing narrative. Harry's repeated use of his mother's legacy feels like a talking point in his endless pursuit of validation. Even the Invictus Games, arguably his most admirable achievement, haven't escaped the shadow of his personal drama. His tendency to place himself at the center of the narrative often detracts from the wounded veterans and service members the event is meant to honor. It's a pattern that's hard to ignore. No matter the cause, Harry and Meghan's brand always seems to take precedence. Their approach to media highlights these contradictions. While they condemn press intrusion, they simultaneously invite cameras into their private lives with lucrative Netflix deals and tell-all interviews. This selective exposure creates a widening credibility gap. Their habit of praising media outlets that flatter them while suing those that criticize them further reveals their inability to accept scrutiny or dissent. Their interactions with the public also raise questions. Meghan's speeches, filled with generic platitudes about empowerment and change, often lack the depth needed to truly resonate. Meanwhile, Harry's barely concealed disdain for his critics only alienates people further, making it difficult for their message to connect meaningfully. Even those who once supported Harry now feel alienated, as he and Meghan struggle to connect with audiences outside their own echo chamber. Their brand has become a caricature of itself, unable to resonate meaningfully with the wider public. Adding to the contradictions are their financial pursuits. From multi-million-dollar deals with streaming giants to questionable partnerships, their relentless pursuit of wealth clashes with their proclaimed dedication to humanitarian causes. The stark contrast between their extravagant lifestyle and their image as advocates for the underprivileged raises uncomfortable questions about their true priorities. Perhaps the most revealing aspect of their story is their strained relationship with the British public. Although they claim to have left the UK in search of a better life, their ongoing involvement in British affairs tells a different story. Harry's legal battles over taxpayer-funded security exemplify his struggle to reconcile his royal past with his new life. Even their charitable efforts, often presented as proof of their commitment to making a difference, fail to overshadow the growing contradictions in their actions. Harry and Meghan are not immune to criticism. The lack of transparency surrounding their Archewell Foundation has sparked doubts about their true intentions. While their focus on high-profile causes seems commendable in theory, it often comes across as more performative than genuinely impactful. Their narrative becomes even more complicated when it comes to their interactions with other royals. Harry's claims of being estranged from his family are called into question by his apparent desire to maintain ties with certain members. His selective approach to reconciliation reveals a man caught between loyalty and resentment, unable to fully commit to either side. Meghan's role in this dynamic cannot be ignored. While her influence on Harry is often framed as empowering, it has been criticized for pushing him further away from his support network. The perception of her as a divisive figure, though unfair in some ways, isn't entirely without merit. The The Sussexes continue to navigate their self-imposed exile. Their future remains uncertain. What was once framed as a journey of self-discovery and reinvention has shifted into a cautionary tale about the complexities of personal choices and public scrutiny. Their inability to reconcile their public persona with their private reality has left Harry and Meghan adrift, struggling to find their place in a world that no longer sees them as infallible. The question remains, can they overcome the contradictions that define their brand? Whether they can adapt and evolve will determine if they stay relevant in the public eye or fade into obscurity. For now, their saga serves as a reminder that authenticity and accountability are non-negotiable in the court of public opinion. The ongoing drama of Harry and Meghan's public life has become a masterclass in irony and self-inflicted chaos. At its core, their story is less about breaking free from the constraints of royalty and more about tying themselves to their own drama. Each headline they generate seems to add another layer of contradiction, leaving many to wonder, do they truly believe the narratives they spin, or is this all a carefully orchestrated performance for an audience that's growing increasingly skeptical? Let's begin with Harry, the man who once branded the British press as the root of all evil, now seems to be the same person inviting those very cameras into his life. From Netflix documentaries to primetime interviews, his war against the media has taken on a surreal twist. How does one reconcile a man who condemns the invasion of privacy while simultaneously sharing his personal story with any camera that offers a paycheck? The hypocrisy is striking. Take, for instance, his endless complaints about the lack of security in the UK. Harry's insistence on taxpayer-funded protection comes across as entitlement. It's hard to take seriously a man who has chosen the EVE luxury of Montecito while demanding privileges only available to working royals. The message is clear. Harry wants the perks of royalty without the responsibilities, a paradox even his most ardent supporters find difficult to justify. And then there's Meghan, a woman who has skillfully crafted an image of empowerment, yet has alienated herself from nearly everyone she encounters. Her public persona is one that Meghan has crafted an image of self-assurance and altruism, yet her actions often reveal an underlying insecurity. Her relentless need to control the narrative, whether through carefully staged interviews or heavily edited documentaries, shows a thinly veiled obsession with validation. Take her speeches, for instance. Meghan's penchant for vague, uplifting platitudes has become almost comical. She often speaks in broad, inspiring terms that sound nice, in theory, but lack any real depth. For someone who claims to be a champion of change, her words often come across as hollow and performative. Her absence from any meaningful UK discussions isn't an act of defiance, but rather a calculated avoidance, a sharp contrast to the woman who once said she was eager to jump in and make a difference. Their Californian lifestyle only adds another layer of absurdity to their narrative. While they present their Montecito mansion as a peaceful retreat, reports of Harry's isolation and Meghan's carefully curated public appearances suggest something else. The image of Harry walking the beach alone, while Meghan strategically keeps herself in the spotlight, highlights the disconnect between their idealized life and the reality behind closed doors. Their withdrawal from UK affairs paints a picture of a couple whose freedom may, in fact, be more isolating than liberating. What's most perplexing, however, is their obsession with public perception. For two people who claim to despise the spotlight, they seem remarkably skilled at stepping into it, again and again. Their multi-million-dollar deals with Netflix, Spotify, and various publishers are less about telling their story and more about profiting from the very institution they claim to have left behind. Every move they make shouts, "Look at us," while they simultaneously insist they want privacy. Even their charitable efforts are not without scrutiny. Archewell, their much-lauded foundation, has faced criticism for its lack of transparency and meaningful impact. While they claim to want to make a difference, their actions often feel like shallow attempts to boost their brand, rather than truly help those in need. Perhaps most damning is their inability to connect with the very audience they claim to champion. Their attempts at relatability, whether through carefully staged appearances or public speeches, often fall flat. Their tales of parenting struggles or reflections on mental health often fall flat for a couple whose wealth and privilege firmly place them in the upper echelons of society. Their claims of understanding ordinary struggles come across as disingenuous at best. Their relationship with the royal family only adds more complexity to the situation. Harry's attempts to reconcile with his family are undermined by his ongoing criticisms of the very institution they represent. Meghan's absence from these discussions only fuels the perception that she's unwilling to make amends, further alienating the Sussexes from the family they claim to value. As their story continues to unfold, one can't help but marvel at the sheer audacity of it all. Their contradictions, hypocrisies, and relentless self-promotion have turned them into caricatures of the very institution they once sought to escape. Harry and Meghan may have stepped away from the royal fold, but they remain trapped in a gilded cage of their own making. Their narrative is not one of triumph over adversity, but rather an endless struggle with their own contradictions. Their quest for validation is a continuous cycle of grievance and self-promotion that shows no signs of slowing down. For all their talk of freedom and empowerment, Harry and Meghan's story ultimately represents squandered opportunities and unfulfilled promises. And there you have it, an in-depth look at the ever-controversial saga of Harry and Meghan, a tale filled with contradictions, calculated moves, and relentless public spectacle. Whether you're captivated by their boldness or left shaking your head at their audacity, one thing is certain: this couple knows how to keep the world talking. But at what cost? As we watch their story unfold, it becomes increasingly clear that the pursuit of freedom and individuality comes with its own set of challenges, and, in their case, a heavy dose of irony. Now, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think Harry and Meghan are navigating their path the best they can? Or do you feel they've lost their way entirely? Drop your opinions in the comments below. We're eager to see what you think. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into royal drama, don't forget to like and share. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it. It really helps support the channel and ensures we can keep bringing you more content like this. Also, make sure to subscribe for more royal insights, dramatic breakdowns, and juicy updates on all your favorite, or not-so-favorite, high-profile figures. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss a video. We've got plenty more content coming your way that you won't want to miss. Thank you so much for watching, engaging, and being a part of this discussion. Until next time, stay tuned, stay curious, and let's keep exploring the twists and turns of the modern monarchy together.